I'm gonna go check a camera down along this creek bed. This way. But I don't have too much enthusiasm about this one just yet, because I don't think the elk are coming from up this end of the valley. They'll definitely be here in the rut, but it's an easy check, so we'll go down here and see what's going on. Let's go. Let's go. Find him. Might be something on there, but I don't know. Let's go this way. This way. Here. This way. Over here. Over here. It's a great trail. And here's my camera. Let's see what's on it. Hey, Bubs. All right, let's go back up. Come on. All right, so that I can't switch out the card to add into the video because it's a mini SD in there. I didn't bring a replacement mini SD or a mini SD card holder, so I could put it into my phone. Come on, jump up. So I could put it into my phone from here. But all there was on it was a fairly decent black bear running up the trail. I don't know what he was running so fast for, because there's no elk ahead of him and there's no big bear behind him, so I don't know. And there's a cow elk, and that's it. And then some mouse, I guess, was infatuated with my trail camera and messed around with it. Somehow moved the frickin' camera. Maybe it's a rat, I don't know. You see his whiskers and his nose. And he moved the camera, which dislodged the branch I had behind the camera to angle it down the trail. So I fixed that, reset it, and off we go to the next trail camera. I might have to move this camera. Damn, this is a good trail. And I've had some big bulls on here, but that was a poor choice of camera position. Poor choice. Right off the get-go, I should have known better. Oh well, you roll the dice, right? Let's see what's on this one. Alright, so we got one young bull on there. So I changed it up. Big trail's behind me, but there's another trail coming down off the hip I caught bulls on before, so I put it up on here this time. Facing down there. So, see what happens. Now we're gonna have to go for a bit of a hike to get to this serious crossing and hopefully find the jackpot elk trail, which I'm pretty sure I already did. We'll check that next. Let's go. This is why nobody seems to find these trails. The good ones. If I hadn't seen those elk bail over the bank and come in here, I wouldn't have found this trail. Wouldn't even have thought of going in here as usual. So hopefully it doesn't rain too bad, eh, Bubs? We can get a video made in here. Keep going. Let's go. Come on. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. This way. A little bit. Where are we? Got the right way? Yeah, this way. Hold on. This way, I think. This way. Come here. This way. That's it. This way. This way. This way. Come here. Oh my God. No, come back here. Come back. Right here. That's it. You're kidding me. Come on. Okay, hold it. Hold on. Okay, this way. Come here. Come here, come here. It's gonna bust open your light here in a second. Hauling logs out here across the valley. Oh yeah, there's chipped up log in the trail here. Man, this is a trail, isn't it, Bubs? There we go. On our trail. Hopefully this camera didn't get moved. What a spot. Oh, keep going. Can't wait to see this camera. What's on this one? What do you think, Bubs? Something on there? If I had to guess before I look, I'd say elk for sure. Probably black bear, maybe a cat, no deer. That's going to be my guesstimation. For me. That's why I use string. I'm only 4 feet from this tree and you can't tell there's a camera on there, can you? But if there's a band or a strap that comes with cameras, you would. That's why I use that commercial fishing twine. And there it is. What do you think, Bubs? Maybe something on there? Let's find out. Okay, sit down there, wait there, right? It's a lot steeper than it looks in the camera. Okay. Damn. Mini SD again. You gotta be kidding me. I don't have the right card with me to read it, so I gotta look at it off the camera. Alright, so, bingo! That kind of sucks, I can't show everybody what's on the camera, but there's 4 bull elk on it. All bulls, no cows, so I don't know how habitual they're going to be, but I'll bet you there's going to be a monster bull on here eventually, for sure. That's good, that's exciting. So it really sucks is after all that hold on. After all that fuss of getting that cordless mic and getting all set up and figuring out how to use it, I forgot it. You gotta be kidding. What I wanted to do is I wanted to set up that camera that you guys are looking through right now and have it way up there so you can see the whole river bottom and all these slopes, and just have us just in a small corner where you can watch everything down there and all around behind us. Well, we got some emails shared clearly on the cordless mic. So, I'm gonna throw the dice, share some emails from here, and hope to God this microphone on the camera is working up so you can hear me clearly. I don't know. Who knows, maybe you'll see a bear cross backman below us or some elk or something, I don't know. I'm sure Ruby will go crazy if something happens though, right? So, where do I start? Now, across the valley is the main logging road. It's fairly busy. So here we go. I hope you can hear me. This is titled Frightening Experience. Call me Lena. All right. Hi, Steve. I'm a medical professional and ask that you do not use my name or the name on my email. I feel like a coward asking for privacy since one of my professions deals with helping people deal with family dysfunction and abuse, PTSD, and the fallout and stigma related to these crushing life events. My other degree and profession is as a trauma and surgical nurse in a small medical community. I'm a Navy vet and a responsible medical professional for 40 years. I grew up in the rich culture of the Louisiana Bayou with its Cajun, Creole, and First Nations of Choctaw, Caddo, Puma, Chitimacha history, stories and legends. I personally had my own and shared others' experiences in the woods, bayous, and places that have made my skin crawl. I've been chased by moose and alligators, face to face and stalked by black bear, and faced off with aggressive large dogs. I also have a special connection with animals. And from the short background, you can discern that I'm not easily spooked. I am vetted in the supernatural, superstition, legends, and family history. My grandmother had the, quote, gift, end quote, of vision, as does my mother. And I'll leave it at that. So I'm not shocked or dismissive at reports of clients, friends, and acquaintances sharing things that seem impossible, strange, weird, that they are hesitant to share. I was hesitant to share my experience with you since it does not fit the usual experience that others have shared, so I'm not sure this experience fits your desire to share. But it is inexplicable and has changed my life and haunted me. Considering my background, I think you can understand that I want to share, and I hope to find some explanation. I'm very grateful to have found your website 3 months ago and have listened to as many episodes as possible in that time frame. Thank you for helping us to have a safe voice, and I praise your courage. Please feel free to cut this to fit your time constraints, as the background was for your information. Until I listened to some of the incidents others reported, I would not even have considered Sasquatch. Sasquatch can't be this close to an urban park. I had no idea other than people had heard my commands in their head. I had no idea other people had heard commands in their head and that it would be contributed to Sasquatch. I also had not shared this with anyone, fearing I would not be believed. My experience happened 15 years ago and haunts me to this day. I live in Alaska, in a large city but on the outskirts. My house is the very last house abutting a park and surrounded by woods. And there are 3 large creeks, and the mountain range within 3 to 5 miles. We have encountered moose, lynx, black bear, and once a wolf. And until this incident, I'd walked my dog in the park for 2 years with no problem. And as I stated earlier, I'm independent, adventurous, and not easily spooked. And on this particular evening, following a 12-hour shift, it was a dark, beautiful, chilly. The air was very fresh. I headed out with my dog, a 170-pound wolf hybrid, and that's another story. I'm not a believer in taming wild animals. To the half-mile walk to our favorite trailhead. I was in high spirits, as was my dog, who was off leash about 8 feet ahead of me. We entered the heavily wooded trail and had walked about 100 feet when a feeling of extreme fear came over me. At the same moment, my dog froze, hair standing up on her back, and without a command, she did not turn around to run to me, but backed up. The few feet between us pressed her body to my leg and remained at my side at full alert. At this time, I heard loudly in my head the command, "Leave." I was so frightened I didn't even process the weirdness. I just gave the command to go to my dog and we beat feet out of there. My dog, who usually will run ahead if allowed off the leash, was stuck to my leg for entire fast-paced walk home. We went home, locked the doors, and sat up the rest of the night. Sadly, I've not hiked that trail again. I've only hiked in a group since then, which for me defeats the purpose of a walk in nature. I loved and missed my peaceful time in nature, and thank you for allowing me to share with you. And a story. There you go. Well, if you're still hanging out here, I'm glad you found us, and you now know that you're not the only one, you're not alone, right? I think I'm going to move this camera closer because I feel like I have to yell talk, and I'm not into that, so it's getting kind of dark. It might start pissing rain again. We'll see. Hold on. Stay there. And it's so steep here. This is such a freaking awesome spot for elk. Like, it's such a serious trail crossing here. This is just one little hip on this ridge right here landing. And this major trail comes up this side, and then the other one comes up that side, meets right where the tripod is, and then goes straight up this side of the valley. That's pretty good though. A couple weeks and got a few bulls on it already, so it'll be really cool once they get their huge antlers, start running it up and screaming and stuff. Where are you going? Bubs. All right. Ruby, you okay? Keep me posted. You're looking at it, all right? All right, lay down, lay down, lay down. Unless it's serious. Lay down. Good girl. Don't go over there. You better stay up here, all right? Come up here. Come up here. Come over here. Come on. I'm not here, but come over here. Sit down here. Sit down. Sit. Sit down here. There you go. Is that gonna work? She's had a bit of a long day. Northern Michigan Bigfoot Experience is the title of this email. I'm trying not to yell talk, but it's not that easy. Hopefully you can hear me. Hi Steve, I've been watching your channel for some time and I got hooked on your hunting stories. Please don't use my name, as I don't need any grief. I'm 54 years old, U.S. Army veteran, and a state corrections officer of nearly 20 years experience. I don't rattle easily. Summer of 1991, approximately 15 miles northeast of Grayling, Michigan. I used to live outside of town in a banged up old mobile home. I spent a lot of time in the woods. Not far from my place, out in the huge National Guard training area, was a lake. I called it Lonesome Lake. It doesn't have an actual name, just a number. It was an odd lake for Michigan, almost a crater lake. The lake's in a deep valley surrounded on all sides by heavily wooded steep hills. On one side of it is a 2-track, a 1-vehicle wide driving passage. So I go in there one day to go float tube fishing. I pull the truck in, go all the way to the end of the 2-track, turn the truck around and park. Note, about halfway across the lake, the hillside just out about 50 feet, as to be an obstruction on the 2-track, you can't see around it. I get my gear around and get out on the water in my float tube. I wasn't getting any bites, but it was cool because I was getting a good show from a couple of ospreys fishing. And after about 45 minutes, I can hear something walking in the leaves on the hillside from back around where my truck was parked. I figured it was a deer, possibly a bear, but could even have been squirrels. They can make quite a racket, as any hunter knows. So this goes on for 10 or 15 minutes. I keep hearing occasional movement, and finally I hollered at whatever it was, and I stopped hearing anything. I'm not catching anything, so I decide to head out. I get back to the truck and throw my gear inside, and as I'm walking from the back of the truck to get in, I can hear something take a couple loud, heavy footsteps in the wet sand on the other side of the hill that I can't see around. So I hollered again. Crazy, you heard it in sand. And holy shit, whatever's on the other side of that hill whoops back at me and real loud. Loud. Like being near the amps at a heavy metal concert. I get in the truck, fire it up. It had a loud exhaust, and as I'm pulling up to the obstruction, I'm revving the motor as so to frighten whatever is around that hill. I blast around that hill and head back towards the main trail, and as I'm moving, I distinctly saw several large human-type footprints in the wet sand, but no critter. I get to the main trail, turn right to go up the steep, loosely sand-packed hill, and big down F. I get out, lock the hubs, and as I'm getting back in, it roared at me from the trees about 50 yards behind me. I throw it into 4 high and I start making my way up the hill. I got my eyes glued to the mirrors, and about 3/4 of the way up the hill, I can see a very large 7 to 8 foot tall black hairy figure step out of the tree line onto the sandy track, which kind of backlit, if that makes any sense, and I got the hell out of there. It was weird, but my dog, a big yellow lab who was pretty fearless, wouldn't go near my truck for a few days after, and he used to live, and he lived to go for rides. My only other experience was last year during bow season in October. I was at my hunting cabin outside Vanderbilt, Michigan, about 2 a.m. and I was laying up in the loft, drifting off to sleep, and I could hear something walking outside in the leaves, but I wrote it off as deer, as there are many oaks around my cabin, and then something smacked the side of my cabin hard. It freaked me out. But I was admittedly a little bit drunk at the time and fell asleep. The next morning when we went outside, there was a smudged, greasy-looking mark that very well could have been a handprint about 8 feet up the exterior wall, near the front corner. It kind of pissed me off because now I always feel I need to carry my 10 mil when at the cabin. Keep up the good work. Gary. I don't know if you said to use your whole name or not, so just use your first name, Gary. Welcome to the club, my man. And if you're still hanging out, give us an update. So I have a funny feeling you've had a lot more happen since. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, next, and just for anybody who's curious, do you guys remember last year, our First Nations girlfriend of ours, she gave us that video of the bright, silent lights above her car in the dark? Well, that was basically right here, about I had to guess, about 800 yards that way, on the other side of the river. Just so you know, this is a place where I feel if something weird's potentially going to happen, it's going to happen here, where we are right now. Not that I'm not after that, I'm just saying that's where we are. This is the title of my story. Hello Steve, this is Darren, and I'm from Edmonton, Alberta. I'm watching YouTube videos for some time now, and every one of them are always very interesting. Steve, I hope you read this, because I've been wanting to email you my story since this incident happened. Okay, man, I hope you're still here watching, because here we go. Something happened to me a couple of years ago while a good friend and myself were camping northeast of Boyle, Alberta. B-O-Y-L-E, Alberta. To this very day, I still think about what the hell happened, and I can't figure out why or what. We were camped for a week in a private campsite, and it was close to the end of the year, and the campsite was very quiet, as we were the only ones in the campsite for a week. This was during the week. We are ATV enthusiasts, and we love exploring the wilderness, northern and western Alberta. We decided to pack our stuff for a long ride and head out early in the morning. Halfway into the day, we stopped at a creek as suddenly we could not go any further as the trail suddenly ended. We decided to go stop for lunch, and as we were enjoying it, we looked to the west and saw this perfectly good tree fall over. We heard the cracking and the thump of the tree hit the ground. The tree was at least 100 yards away, so all we saw was the top part go over, but the bottom part was in dense brush, so we could not see ground level. It was a huge tree of about 14 inches in diameter at the trunk, and it was a perfectly good tree. It wasn't dead. And after this happened, myself and my buddy looked at each other in disbelief, speechless. Didn't know what to say for at least 30 seconds or more. And we started to pack things up right away. But I had to go number 2, so I had no choice but to grab my toilet tissue and head out into the bush and take care of business. And of course, I went in the opposite direction of where I saw the tree topple over. I squatted to take care of business, but I had this feeling something was watching me. There was not a sound, no birds, no wind, nothing. And as I was squatting, I heard a thumping in the bush to my right, and suddenly I was freaked out. I didn't finish taking care of business. But I got back to my ATV, and my buddy already was sitting on his machine, running, ready to leave. We decided to go towards this tree and saw that it definitely broke, as if something had pushed it over, because it was splintered. The first thing I thought of was a beaver, and we would see signs of them with wood chips everywhere, but nothing. Well, we hightailed it out of there, and it took us another half a day to get back to our campsite. It was getting dark, and we had cooked supper and sat around the fire and talked about what it could have been. We had it in our minds that it could have been a large brown bear, but then again, the tree was not dead, and the splinters we saw definitely not dead. We hit the sack around 10 p.m. and had a good night's sleep. But right around 4:30 a.m., I woke up, turned my camper light on, and started reading a novel that I had started the night before. And about a half an hour later, say 5 a.m., something hit and pushed my trailer hard enough that it shook. Scared the shit right out of me. Big trucks. It only lasted about 2 or 3 seconds, and it sounded like it was right at the door. I turned my light off right away, and I lied there in my bed wondering if my buddy's playing a prank or if the park attendant's trying something funny. I did not want to investigate because it was still very dark outside, and I fell back to sleep. By 7:30 a.m. I awoke again and made coffee inside my camper, and then I opened the door to my camper and stepped out. I have a rug that I put in front of the camper, and all around that is sand. I sweep off the rug every evening as sand collects onto the rug quite a bit, but there were no tracks or any signs of sand on the rug. It was a cool night with mildew everywhere, and the road and sand all around us was still a bit wet. I still saw no signs of footprints anywhere. So I went down the road with coffee in hand and went for a walk to see if I could see any signs of footprints. Nothing. Hold on a sec. Oh, something's in my eye. Something alive. All good. I went back in my campsite. My buddy was also up, and he was sitting at the picnic table with his coffee. So we sat there chatting a bit, and I finally asked him if he heard or saw anything strange early this morning, and he said, yeah, I felt something hit the wall of my trailer and it shook a bit. I told him my story, and he was in disbelief. 7 a.m. is when the park caretaker starts his shift at the main gate, so we walked over and asked him if there was anyone in the park during the night, and he said no. The gate's locked at 11 p.m. and the doors open at 7 a.m. My buddy and I looked at each other and we told him our story, and he could not believe what he was hearing. And he swore there was no one in the park. And he has his own camper right beside the gate. To this day, it still comes to mind as what it could have been and why it happened to us. And this is late September 2019. Thanks, Darren Zimmer. All right, Darren, there you go, man. I got a funny feeling you know what I'm going to say is you already know what it was. You already know what it was. If you found this channel on your own and you looked into emailing us through me, you know what it was. Yeah. Man, I'm hungry. You gotta be starving. She's passed out. It's probably a good sign, right? Means nothing's in our immediate vicinity that she knows about. This is titled Reflecting on My Encounter. Dear Steve, you read my email recounting my sighting this past summer. I watch your videos and see the patterns you pointed out. Rivers, streams, and other water body areas seem to be common locations for sightings. And another thing jumps out at me. This rapid disappearance of the Sasquatch is repeated over again in so many reports. At one point, you mentioned that First Nation people say the Sasquatch can shapeshift and appear as other creatures. I hope I have that right. Perhaps they can simply disappear as well. I have thoughts and questions. Could it be that not every human has the ability or a mind to see them? Could it be that we play a part in this as well? We humans are not exactly alike in many ways. For instance, some people have a high or a low tolerance for pain. It isn't about who's a tough guy and who's a weakling. It's about how pain is registered with each person. And what, if any, is our individual role in this experience? Why? Why did I see this? And does it mean I'm likely to have another experiences as well? I was on top of Moose Mountain in New Hampshire deer hunting in November 2020 when I felt that feeling of being watched. The thought came to me that I might have another encounter. Made me uneasy. My very brief encounter this summer was not frightening, though. I was anxious to return to my truck. So now what? Is my mind going to play tricks on me forever? Or am I now tuned into being in the presence of a Sasquatch even when I have no sighting, etc.? Merely feel the presence of a Sasquatch? Why do I feel so uneasy and fearful at such times? I was not attacked or bothered by the young male I saw watching me fly fishing. Why do I have fear now? It is not an animal. It appeared to be an intelligent creature, not evil. The Sasquatch beats on trees and cabins, tosses rocks, and scares the hell out of people, but I do not hear people torn apart from the head, tossed 75 yards away like a softball. Is it possible to overcome the fear and make contact with a Sasquatch and communicate? So far, as I know, no one has done that. Why not? Thanks, Steve. Bobby Sharonsky, Sharon, Vermont. Bobby, I don't know how long you've been hanging out here, but there's a lot of people claiming to be in contact with them around their homes. A lot. Logging trucks. But I think also if that's what you're into, you got to be careful what you wish for, right? Who knows what's that going to open up for you? You know what I mean? I'm making up, Bubs. You all right? You passed right out. Yeah. So the answer is, yeah, people do communicate with them, all right? They do. They do. Here's another one. My Bigfoot story. Hi, Steve. As a hunter and fisherman, I was glad you started to share this aspect of the great outdoors. I have been fascinated with the subject since the Patterson-Gimlin footage. My sharing is an experience and not a sighting, but I have wondered about it for years. This experience took place in the 70s in the Lake of the Woods area in Ontario. Our family has a 100-year lease of 3 acres. Our grandfather built a small cabin at it after World War II, which we still have to this day. The cabin has no roads to it, never did, and my grandfather and a couple of his brave friends brought everything to build the cabin in the dead of winter over the ice on trucks and runner sleds. Then in springtime, they went back over the water on boats to start the build. The trip over the water to the cabin is like a water maze. You have to go around forest-covered island chains. There are reefs to consider, almost endless rocky shorelines on both sides of you, to finally have it all open up to arrive at our cabin. The cabin sits on a rocky cliff at the end of the point facing west. My grandfather did all this for a hunting and fishing cabin, but the government made the area into a forest reserve, which killed the hunting for him, somehow. I never did know why. But my family over the decades fished for smallmouth bass, northern pike, and springtime lake trout. It was a yearly thing without fail. Now for my experience. Later, as I was born into our family of 6, I came to enjoy the cabin and had many fond memories. My father trusted me at a very young age to use a 12-foot duck boat we had up there. He said I could go out on the boat as long as I would stay in the bay behind our cabin. The bay was about 2 miles long and about 200 yards wide in places. The bay and the whole area had thick, dense forest right up to the granite shoreline. One late afternoon, something around in my duck boat with my 5-horse Evinrude outboard, and I was simply heading back to the dock. But I was soon overcome with that feeling of dread and fear. That feeling like so many on your channel talk about. I remember turning my head to the right, turning my head toward the shoreline from where the fear was coming from. And yes, that's what I said, where the fear was coming from. And I don't know what that means, but the feeling was somehow coming to me. My little boat was still moving along about at 10 miles per hour. And the whole time I was looking to the shoreline, feeling shook, not knowing what was happening. I was not watching where I was going. Thank goodness I didn't run aground. But I was glaring at the passing shoreline, looking at one tree with the entire forest behind it. Why that tree? The tree wasn't moving or anything, but I was focused on that spot. To tell you the truth, I'm so glad nothing stepped out of the forest. As I went further down the bay, the feeling went away, and I was fine. But as soon as I got back to the dock, I tied off the boat and I ran up the hill to join my family at the cabin. And I never told my dad or anyone all my life. But I did think about it over the years. Plus, from a big family of 6, no one asks a kid that comes in from outside anything. Plus, you don't interrupt adult conversation. But it wasn't until I watched your channel and listened to the many emails from your followers that I was compelled to send my simple experience. It's surprising how liberating it is just to write it down. I've had this in written form in my notebook for a while now. I return to it now and again to check its flaws and check spelling, etc., but only now sending it. I'm 60 now, and it feels good just to get it out of my mind. I don't have a thing about it, but any truth needs to be spoken and heard, no matter what it is about. Thank you for making a place to learn so much more about our crazy outdoors. Thank you, Patrick, Norfolk, Virginia. Patrick, you're welcome, and thanks for sharing that with us. I'll guarantee you there's been sightings around there. I think we've heard from that zone before, actually. Pretty sure. Okay, I'm going to read one more, and then we're going to hike up this hill and get out of here. Get home, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a phone call from the guy who video recorded those 5 people in the winter on his phone once I get back. I'm not in any cell service here where I am. I got about an hour to get home. This is titled Yosemite Experience. It was about 1969. My family went on a camping trip to Kings Canyon, Yosemite, and onto the Grand Canyon. We were at a campground in Yosemite. It was summer, and the place was packed. My family consisted of 6 in a surplus army tent that was the size of a large cabin, so it seemed to me at 9 years old anyway. We all slept in sleeping bags on the floor of the tent. Anyway, I awoke during the night to the sound of someone or something walking around our tent. At first I thought it was my father returning from the privy, but I quickly noticed he was snoring and asleep next to me. The footsteps sounded heavier, real heavy, and whatever it was bipedal. I remember being scared and thinking at first it's a bear, but then I was what looked like fingers poking at the side of the tent. I just read word for word, right? To this day, I can still see that it was not claws, but a human-type hand outline just pushing at the top of the tent. Mind you, it was over 6 feet at the point of the ceiling, so whatever it was standing up. I shook my father awake, and he said, "What?" in a startled voice. Whatever it was obviously heard and walked off. And I explained why I woke him up, and he said it was probably just a bear and said, "Don't worry about it," and went back to sleep. It took a while, but I eventually went back to sleep. So in the morning, the campground was just abuzz with people talking about what apparently was a bear that came through the campground and disrupted the whole place. There were rangers everywhere, assuring the campers that it was a bear and no reason for concern, that it happens all the time. I was not convinced. I tried to tell my parents what I had seen, but they insisted it was a bear, and just to forget it. I recall asking the ranger if bears walked around on 2 legs all the time because I thought they just walked on all 4s. And the way he looked at me, I'll never forget. He looked at my father and said, "Smart kid." Then back to me and said, "They stand up when they need to." Anyway, it's taken years to come to the conclusion that I may have experienced a Bigfoot. The numerous stories of people having the same type of experience with these beings touching tents brought it all back. Thank you for the hard work and the effort put into providing a platform for the thousands of people to get their stories heard. Take care. All right, thanks for sending it in. This platform's nothing without people like you, right? Okay, one more. One more. It's not raining, but I gotta get out of here. My fearless protector passed right out. Encounter in North Georgia mountains. Hi, Steve. First of all, I want to thank you for your efforts in sharing the truth with all of us. It's greatly appreciated by those of us who are in honest pursuit of what's actually happening out there. Please don't use my name. I'm a professional writer, and I mostly focus on outdoor topics. I've written for quite a few outdoor magazines and websites, but enough about me. Let's get down to my story. Did I read your name? No. Last December, me and a few buddies went to Cohutta, WMA in North Georgia for a late season bear hunt. I should preface this by saying that I had very little knowledge about Sasquatch beings before my trip. I've never been a full-fledged believer when it comes to Sasquatch, but I've always found it interesting, and all the Native American tribes that have stories or beliefs regarding these beings always describe them as a wild man or hairy man, or something else that indicates that they are, in fact, not an animal, but indeed a human-like creature. My group drove to a remote trailhead of Cohutta, and our game plan was to hike as far as we could to get away from any other hunters. We hiked 5 miles into the mountains, into what is likely one of the most remote areas in the state of Georgia. We reached the top of the mountain and decided to make camp for the night and hunt an hour or two before dark. We were legally able to shoot anything from deer, bear, wild hogs, so we're all on high alert in hopes of getting a shot of something. And I should note that it had snowed a bit the day before we came into the WMA, so there was anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow on the ground. And we noticed a fair amount of deer tracks, as well as bear tracks and other critters as we hiked in. But after setting up camp, we trekked a good ways across a ridge and sat down until it got almost dark before we returned to camp. And in the few hours we hunted, we didn't see a thing. Not even a bird or a squirrel. When we got back to camp, we started a fire and sat down to relax and strike up the usual campfire banter that goes along with hunting trips. And we were laughing and swapping, stories long after the sun had gone down, warming our hands and feet by the fire. And as the night went on, we had to make regular trips away from the camp to find more firewood. And each time I ventured out to get firewood, I had the eerie feeling that I was being watched. And I just figured it was some type of animal watching me and didn't think much of it. We were sitting around the campfire talking, and all of a sudden we heard a loud whoop sound that pierced the night air. The whoop sound was sort of like a police siren as it started low and gradually increased in pitch until it ended. It wasn't a short sound, but it seemed to last two or maybe 3 seconds. I spent a lot of considerable time out in the woods and I've heard a range of fox, bobcat, owls, and other strange noises, but this was nothing like I've ever encountered. And one thing that really stood out about this sound was that it sounded distinctly human, only louder. There was one single whoop and seemed to originate too close for comfort, about 60 yards to our west on the side of the mountain that was especially steep. It also came precisely from the area where I had felt like I was being watched earlier as I gathered firewood. As soon as we all heard it, we froze. My hair stood on end. I grabbed my rifle that was propped up against a nearby log next to the fire and shined my flashlight into the dark tree line. But the sound seemed so human-like that I fully expected to see a person standing among the trees to where it had originated. My thoughts were racing. I knew that we were camping in a very remote section of the WMA and that there were no trails for miles in the direction from where this whoop sound had come from. As I shined my light around, searching for whatever had made the sound, I tried to make sense of what was happening. I instinctively knew that the sound came from what I perceived to be a human. I was a bit fearful, thinking to myself, what kind of a lunatic is creeping around in the mountains for hours after sunset, making odd whooping sounds at a group of guys who were armed with high-power rifles? My buddy stood by the fire, their rifles in hand, eyes as big as saucers. I shined my flashlight into the trees for half a minute before backing up and returning to the fireside. And then, what the hell was that, my buddy asked. And each of us tried to rationalize what we had heard, and one of my friends said it could have been an owl. My other friend replied, that was way too big for an owl. We finally settled down, chalking up the incident to some strange creature that we were just not familiar with. However, I knew that whatever had made that noise was not anything that was near ordinary. We hunted the next morning for a bit, but decided to make our way out of the mountains as a big rainstorm was making its way toward us. One thing I thought was odd is that we never saw so much as a squirrel the entire time we were at that location where we camped. Nothing. Everything was extremely quiet the entire time, but I just thought the snow must have caused all the animals to remain hunkered down while we were there. The whole way home I couldn't stop thinking about that strange sound and what could possibly have made it. And as soon as I got home, I unpacked my gear and instantly started researching owls. They were native in that portion of the North Georgia mountains, and as well as any other animal the sound could have come from. But after days of studying various avenues, I didn't come up with anything that made sense. That was until about a month later when I came across a YouTube video titled something like Bigfoot Whooping Sound. This immediately caught my attention and I watched the video. The video was a couple of Bigfoot researchers attempting to replicate the infamous whooping sound that is characteristic of Sasquatch beings. Well, I heard one of the researchers making the exact sound I heard that night. and I had a cold chill come over my body. It was exactly the same as the sound I heard that night. It set me on a quest to learn more about Sasquatch and the signs that are typically associated with them. After coming across your channel and watching dozens of videos, I'm almost certain that what I heard that night was a Sasquatch. It's probably telling us that we were a bit too close to its home turf or something. It's certainly a sound I'll never forget. Thanks for taking the time to read my story. Thank you for your efforts in telling others the truth about these beings. And P.S. if you ever need a writer for any of your projects, Sasquatch related or just simply hunting, please contact me. I'd be happy to help. All right, thanks for that friendly, kind offer. Quote, go afield with a good attitude with respect to the wildlife you hunt and for the forest and fields of which you walk. Immerse yourself in the outdoor experience that will cleanse your soul and make you a better person. Brad Bear. Does it ever? And will it ever? All right, Bubs, let's go. You ready? You ready to go home? You want to go? You guys see her? She's probably just out of the video. Here, come over here. You little sleepy dog. What are you so sleepy about? Huh? Hey? You're supposed to be ready. Ready to attack the ferocious bears. Right? Save Dad. Hey, Bubs. Alright, let's go home. We got horses to feed, chickens to deal with, maybe some more fencing, maybe. Sarah comes home tomorrow. And then, hopefully we're going to get that phone call done tonight. I can't wait to talk to that kind man about what went down in that video that he shared with us, right? That's going to be good. You ready? You awake? I don't think you're in the video, are you? Are you? Are you? Well, you are now. Why are you so... Man, those logging trucks are loud, eh? Alright, enough of this babbling. Who knows, I might put some more in here when we get back. We'll see. If not, share my story at howtohunt.com, alright? Try to remember the cordless mics next time we get in the woods. Email me your truth, alright? Get it off your chest and get it out. Somebody will benefit from it. Oh. Oh, Bubs. All right, you ready to hike out of here? You ready to go? Yeah? All right. Get your leash ready here. Okay, ready? You know which way to go? You get us back to the truck? Hold on. Hold on, Bubs. All right, let's go. Back home. Let's go up the hill. Let's go. It's a steep one. Hey? Camera set. Hope there's some big elk on there when I come back, and who knows when. I'm going to try to leave it a month anyway. Let's go. Atta girl. Keep going. Supposed to be in better shape than me. Atta girl. Man, this would have been a good spot for the camera, actually. You smelling them? You smelling that elk? Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let's have a view here. All right. Oops. I'm coming. All right, let's go that way. Actually, no, let's go this way. This way. Hold on. Yeah, it's not too thick or anything, right? This way, Bubs. This way, this way. Come on. Where are we? Famous last words, right? This way. That's it. That's it. Can't see shit on the ground. Here we are. Keep going. Come on, keep going. Come on, let's go. Up the bank, come on, this way.